Well, he served under multiple attorneys general in the 60s and 70s. He enforced civil rights law and witnessed historic protests. And he has a few things to say about the unrest now. Our Marco Lamano shares this story.
Let's face it, if those pictures weren't showed on TV, you wouldn't have these demonstrations.
Larry Hoffheimer knows that seeing is believing.
We got all four!
And he knows about civil rights conflicts, having served in the Justice Department under multiple attorneys general as far back as Bobby Kennedy. He was a trial attorney for the Civil Rights Commission.
The demonstrations around the country were rampant, and I figured I could be in the middle of it.
The response to George Floyd's death isn't surprising to Hoffheimer.
Everybody saw it, and it was gruesome.
Similar to the Birmingham campaign, a civil rights movement in 1963.
There was no violence.
And yet local authorities infamously hosed protesters and used attack dogs under the direction of the city's Commissioner of Public Safety, Bull Connor.
That got sympathy, and particularly in Washington.
President Kennedy delivered a famous civil rights address that June, but President LBJ made civil rights a centerpiece of his presidency.
The real hero of this struggle is the American Negro. His actions and protests, his courage to risk safety, and even to risk his life, have awakened the conscience of this nation.
President Johnson also had something that John Kennedy didn't have. He was a former majority leader in the Senate, very powerful, and would do anything to get his positions adopted.
And he did with the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965. One of the major laws Hoffheimer enforced during this period was Title 18, Section 242, a law against summary punishment without due process of law.
That's what law enforcement often is accused of doing when they overreact.
He says poor training is not the culprit behind abuses of power.
The culprit is recruitment.
And he believes economic disparities need to be addressed. Or
we're still going to have these problems.
Problems from last century.
The economic plight of the Negro poor has worsened,
which he hopes are solved in this one. Reporting from Sarasota, Marco Lamano, SNN, the Suncoast News Network.
And by the way, Hoffheimer is the founder of Parkinson Place right here in Sarasota.